Do it. Good morning. This open meeting of the Coastal Resilience Advisory Committee is convening by video conference pursuant to Chapter 2 of the Acts of 2023. All supporting materials that have been provided members of this body are available on the town's website, unless otherwise noted. This meeting is being recorded. Please be aware that other people may be able to see you, and take care not to share your device's screen. Anything that you broadcast may be captured by the recording. Please silence all phones and devices. Ensuring public access does not ensure public participation unless participation is required by law. Better at those words. This meeting will feature public comment. For items with public comment, after members have spoken, the chair will afford public comment to those members of the public that have joined the meeting via Zoom. Members of the public who wish to speak must state their names and be acknowledged by and speak through the chair. Use the raise hand feature, which is in the reactions bottom menu bar. This is not in the script, but I just want people to know that. The chair will call on those who have raised their hands in the order they were raised. All questions should be directed through the chair. If you're not able to participate in the remote meeting, you may also submit comments to the Coastal Resilience Coordinator, Leah Hill, and request that they be read into the meeting record. Her email is lhill@nantucket-ma.gov. I am Peter Brace, Chair of the Coastal Resilience Advisory Committee. Permit me to confirm that all members and persons anticipated on the agenda are present and can hear me. Members, when I call your name, please respond in the affirmative. Okay. Doug Rose.
Here.
Gary Beller.
Here.
Sarah Boyce.
Here.
Jen Carberg.
Here.
Christy Kickham.
Here.
Rachel Freeman.
Here.
Matt Fee.
Here.
And I'm here. So staff, when I call your name, please respond in the affirmative. Leah Hill.
Here.
Okay. Anticipated speakers on the agenda, please respond in the affirmative. Kim Starbuck.
Here.
Dax Stewart.
Here.
Ellen Bartels.
Here.
And Kristen, I'm going to butcher your name, Uterwick, is that right?
Here. Yep, Uterwick.
Okay. Finally, each vote taken in the meeting will be conducted by a roll call vote. Okay. So, public comment, just so everybody understands, this public comment is comments on things that aren't on the agenda. After that, after each item, then I'll ask for public comment. It will be on that item. So, go ahead, Leah.
Thanks, Peter. I just have a request for the public that don't have their full names. If you can change it to your name so that we can have them in the minutes, that would be great. I'm going to read a public comment from Deanne Atherton from last meeting. She said, by way of follow-up to today's CRAC meeting, Leah and Peter, we have 4 public comments questions, please. It's always hard to know when to speak up during the meeting, so we're sharing with you now. In addition, we know you had a full agenda and didn't want to prolong the meeting as you are so punctual and adjourning at noon, thanks to Peter's excellent meeting management skills. 1, has the letter to Concom read the construction of pools in a flood zone been made public? If yes, may we please have a copy? 2, in regard to CRP priorities, see attached, we are concerned about an island-wide sediment transport study. It doesn't seem like a harbor sediment transport / dredge plan is the same thing. Now that we understand a sediment budget, another priority is contingent on a sediment study. We are hopeful that this priority be addressed as expeditially as possible. How might we be helpful with this? Aside, perhaps it might be helpful to have a professional expert speak to CRAC about exactly what a sediment transport study and sediment budget are. Such a conversation would help us all understand why Arcadis listed both of these projects among the top priorities in the CRP. 3, in regard to a feasibility study of nearshore breakwaters for Sconset, This was a recommendation not only in the CRP, but also the Baxter Road long-term planning memo. Now the town and SBPF have submitted an NOI to the Concom that does not mention nearshore breakwaters and instead proposes other methods of erosion protection, core, dune nourishment, and geotextile coastal engineering structures. Why was the decision made to apparently reject this recommendation of nearshore breakwaters, and by whom? 4, in regard to the erosion observed following recent storms and another storm today, there was no mention of erosion on Baxter Road from the edge of the bluff to the edge of the pavement. These measurements are key because, as we understand, once the road comes within 25 feet of the edge of the bluff, it must be shut down for public safety reasons. What are the most recent measurements for the vacant properties in the northern area of the geotubes? See attached for a record on Baxter Road measurements. Note the latest were from 2021. Thank you in advance for addressing these questions and comments. We very much appreciate it. Best, Deanne.
Okay. Can I ask the person who is on this meeting, who is listed down in the bottom as MacBook Air, to go to the top corner, right-hand corner of your screen and give us your name. You'll be able to click on the 3 little dots, and at the very bottom, almost, you'll be able to hit rename. Actually, it's in the middle. And tell us who you are. That's not just for our benefit, but for the person doing the minutes. We need to know who you are. Thank you. Okay, so number 4, presentation on coastal resiliency recommendations to include the Nantucket and Mattocket Harbors Action Plan update by Kim Starbuck, Senior Research Associate at the Urban Harbor Institute. You got it, Kim.
Awesome. Thank you guys all so much for having me. So I'm going to be presenting with Alan, with Dak, and Kristen from Urban Harbors Institute is here as well. So we wanted to talk to you guys, do a quick presentation, hopefully no more than 15 minutes. So we might zip through some of these slides to make sure we're making progress. We really want to hear from you all at the end and have more of a question and discussion time. But I know, we came and visited at the end of December to one of your meetings and just kind of quickly briefed you on the things that we've been working on, and wanted to take a little more dedicated time today to talk to you more about that. And then obviously this is not the only time we'll be talking with you and engaging with you. So there'll be plenty of opportunities in the future to keep working together. So let me share my screen. So what we're going to be doing is talking about the Nantucket and Mattocket Harbor Plan update that we've been working on. And so we've been working on this for about a year, and it's an update to the 2009 plan. So the purpose of this harbor plan update is to create a document that establishes what the community really wants to see regarding their waterfronts. So how to guide generally public and private land use along the water. So what we're doing right now is identifying goals, vision, and recommendations for waterways for the future. And obviously, it's pretty impossible to talk about the waterways without talking about coastal resiliency. And that's why we wanted to engage with you guys. We know that you have a very elaborate and extensive coastal resiliency plan. And so we want to make sure that we're working as well as we can with that plan to continue moving your items forward. The harbor plan is going to address boating, fishing, climate change, public access, natural resources, and then really anything else involving the waterway or the harbor waterfronts. We are looking to integrate this plan with existing plans, and right now we're on a 10-year updating schedule. So the last one was 2009. This one's a little bit delayed with 2024, but we can blame COVID for that in a lot of ways. And then really this plan will be state approved. So Mass CZM will get this plan. And so recommendations that are in the plan can then help inform state decision-making regarding activities in town, including people applying for Chapter 91 licenses. So this is really an opportunity to share what the town wants to see, and then the state will end up approving that. Just quickly, our timeline. So we started this back at the beginning of really 2023, late 2022, 2023. We've done a lot of engagement with some of you guys may have been at the public meetings. We also had a survey. And then right now we've done a lot of interviews. And then right now we're in the process of developing the draft plan. So Alan is going to jump into the next few slides, and then Dak is going to finish it off for us.
Thanks, Kim. As Kim mentioned, this is an update to the 2009 Harbor Plan, which, interestingly enough, coastal resiliency or climate change were not sections of that earlier 2009 plan. Obviously, things have changed. And so as we incorporate this new section into our plan, knowing that Nantucket already has a coastal resiliency committee, we thought to kind of ask you how you would like some of the projects that you were working on and goals, how we can have these the goals aligns of these two plans together. So talking about scoping, the Nantucket Harbor Plan deals with these two harbors, your Nantucket Harbor as well as your Mattocket Harbor, both on the screen circled in red here. Kim, next slide. We'll zoom in for Nantucket Harbor. We've identified, or having read the Coastal Resiliency Plan, all however many 300-ish pages of it, there are multiple projects within the harbor boundary that were part of the Coastal Resiliency Plan. Things from downtown up to Kotu and Pulpus Road, all the way to the other side of the island. Kim, next slide. With Mattocket, Ames Ave, F Street boat ramp, certain issues there. So these are the two harbor plan boundaries in which we're working. We can write about island-wide issues. If you go next slide, Kim. The harbor plan can make recommendations for island-wide issues as well as location-specific issues as well. So there is a lot of flexibility, but these are all the projects that we've identified within the harbor plan boundaries, as well as ones added by communication with Leah Hill, specifically those kind of island-wide regulations. So I guess next slide, and I'll hand it over to Dak.
Thanks, Alan. So really what we'd like to talk about today or get opinions on is how to integrate the existing Coastal Resiliency Plan, which I'll be acronym as CRP from here on, with the Harbor Plan update. As you know, this Coastal Resiliency Plan looks out to as far as 2100 for some of its projections, but the Harbor Plan was only focused on 10 years. So what aspects of the CRP should be focused on now that can be addressed in the upcoming 10-year time frame? Because the CRP is such a robust document, how much of it should be reiterated into the Harbor Plan itself? Next slide, Kim. In the course of our research so far, we acquired a bunch of general public comments related to coastal resilience. Some of them are listed here: concerns about sea level rise, concerns that the CRP and the Harbor Plan synergize together. That was actually specifically mentioned by at least more than one person. The priority of both how the town and how the public view things, where a person lives, works, and uses an asset is likely to affect how they value certain projects, and those may be different from the town. How will the town take into account these different public comments where their alignment of priority might not be may be different from what the public says? Concerns over cost. Who's going to pay for this? Is it how much state funding or federal funding can be acquired, or how much will be acquired from the town people? How involved will the public be in the formation of solutions, or will the CRAC rely only on the testimony of experts to form justifications for their decisions? The CRP specifically states that green and nature-based solutions are preferred wherever possible. However, that is not feasible for all projects. So reaching the balance of which recommendations can we make in the next harbor plan that address be as green as possible, but understanding that some of them will have to be gray. The last bullet, the CRP specifically mentioned there were three areas. There was Mattocket Harbor, downtown, and Nantucket Harbor. Each of them had their own sections. The downtown one emphasized in bold letters on the first page, protect and adapt, whereas the Mattocket one and the Nantucket Harbor ones just said adapt. So it seems more that the focus is going to be on adapting to the rising sea level and climate resilience rather than trying to prevent it, which is frankly the right decision. Kim, next slide. These are some examples of public comments we got. You can read here that you can see the emotional testimony that folks have for improving the island. They're using phrases like all of us working together, etc. Even so, two people can be on the opposite ends of the spectrum of any given topic, whereas you can see here on the fourth and fifth bullets referring to Mattocket. One is saying, Mattocket, put off, we need to do other things first. But the other one saying, no, Mattocket first, there's issues there that need immediate resolution. I think we can go through the next slide. There really isn't, there's a whole lot of information on here, but the only thing I want to focus on is that there are projects that have overlap between CRP and the harbor plan, but their implementation dates some are actually begin this year and others reach out to 2050. We assume that this permittability on the far right of this table is unchanged since 2021. However, we know, at least in one case, that may not be true anymore. Should the harbor plan focus on the ones that are permittability green, or also yellow, or all the above? Next slide, Kim. It's my cursor. Same, we're looking at downtown now. It's split evenly between the green and yellow permittability. These have the farthest out implementation dates, 2050. I know that in a correspondence with Leah that the neighborhood flood barrier has actually, it's being, the initial phase, I guess it says 2025, so it has already begun. Next slide.
Sure, and just quick note, I see Matt has his hand.
You want to stop for?
Just quick question. The slide back, you said permittability on something may have changed. What did you mean by that?
The next slide, it's in Mattocket. There's one that, yes, this one. So the final bullet, and this is from correspondence with Leah. The MVP, which unfortunately I'm blanking on what that acronym stands for right now.
Municipal Vulnerability Program.
Thank you, Peter. They rejected a erosion management and pilot project. However, Leah did suggest a pathway forward by breaking it into smaller pieces, maybe focusing on certain ones only in a prioritized order in the harbor plan. That's what I meant by this table is from the 2021 coastal resiliency plan. It did not know since then the MVP had rejected a proposal that the town had put forth. And next slide, and this is the one that I think we will be spending the most time on, and getting the most input and discussion from the rest of the group here. I think if we go one bullet at a time, and Kim, Ellen, and Kristen, anyone can jump in at any time. what is the best way that we should engage with the CRAC as we develop this plan? Are meetings like this to be getting on the schedule a useful tool, or should we have meetings outside of this environment? And if so, at what frequency would you like to be involved with the status that and project progress that we're making?
And if I could just build on that, I will say the public meetings that we have with the Harbor Planning Committee are public. So they happen every other week, roughly, if you guys wanted to attend those. And also just in terms of where we are with the plan right now, we have, we're working on developing each of the sections, and currently we're going through the recommendations or potential recommendations and goals and objectives with the committee. So I think some of the opportunities are to provide some background and more context on the coastal resiliency plan, and to weigh in on some of the goals, objectives, and recommendations that are being developed now, just to give a sense of where we are in the planning process a little bit more.
And Kristen, I think it's important that we understand, I serve on the Harbor Plan Committee as CRAC's representative. I think it's important that CRAC understands how much time we have to see how we can integrate the plans, how much time we have as committee members to think about this and then give feedback, so that we can, obviously we'll talk about this at another meeting because we can't spend the whole meeting talking about this subject. But, I foresee some of our members, maybe Leah and myself and whoever else, attending a harbor plan meeting. Maybe there's a joint meeting where we all come to the harbor plan meeting, but we need to know how much we got to rush because we're in the middle of our own program. So.
Yeah, it's a great point, Peter. And I think having that joint meeting would be great. And Peter, you'll know, but for the rest of your perspectives or input, what we're doing right now is going through the various different topic areas of the plan and talking through the goals, objectives, and recommendations and issues and opportunities as we've heard them so far to get the committee's feedback. So maybe when we do that for the climate change section of the plan, we can invite CRAC members to join for that and also share something in writing prior to that meeting so that anyone who can't attend that meeting can provide at least some written feedback.
I would also add on that to that point, as we're updating recommendations, keep in mind that the 2009 plan did not have any recommendations around climate resiliency or climate change. And so it's kind of an open slate. We don't want to repeat too much, but we want to re-highlight so much of the efforts that's already been done, as well as the opportunities of places to kind of go in the future. So just kind of reiterating that.
I see Leah has her hand up.
Peter, is it okay?
Yes, go ahead, Leah.
Okay, thanks, Peter. I just wanted to clarify on the NBP part for those two Mattocket projects. Vince had written a grant a couple years ago, and it was rejected because the area or the funding for it was too much, according to them, for it wouldn't, I guess, help enough people for how expensive it was. So I just wanted to clarify that it wasn't permitted or anything, and the permitting for it, I think, would still be the same from when it was in 2021. So I just wanted to clarify that. And then Kristen, if you do decide that you want CRAC to do a joint meeting, I'll just need to know far in advance so that I can post everything and comply with open meeting law.
All right, thanks, Leah. Sarah Boyce.
Yeah, thanks. So just if this is the opportunity to weigh in on that question you're asking about communicating, I think taking a step back and thinking about what you want our input on. And so I appreciate what you were saying about inviting us to a certain meeting where there's like that section of the plan is specifically being discussed, and like as you said, any materials we can get earlier to review would be great. And so I think, if there's other items that come up, whether it's part of a particular neighborhood or part of a certain recommendation where our input could be useful, I think like coming to this meeting might be relevant if it's can be discussed in a certain amount of time. The other thing I'll say is I personally recognize that in terms of the overlap, our recommendations between the CRP and what you're going to be coming up with the harbor plan might be different. And I don't think that's a detriment to either plan. CRP being put out in 2021, the recommendations might end up being slightly different because it's time, we've learned more, there's more information, there's more data, there's been updates to so many different parts of data that go into these plans. I think that I would, I'm just wanting to kind of spell it out in this public meeting that if the plans differ in their recommendations slightly, I think that is a strength of us all as a community and all the people working on this are learning more information. I know that sometimes people in the community get frustrated if there's different plans that have different information in them. But I think as long as the data going in are coming from similar sources, the recommendations coming out might be slightly different. And so my only other thought that I had in looking at this ahead of time was thinking about making sure that the data going into both the CRP and beyond the CRP, the work that we do as CRAC, the data that are used are the same. So that we're all working with like the same, sea level rise projections and the erosion and, like whatever data are used for any particular assessment are similar across the board. And so maybe that means we adjust, and maybe that means like you guys point to CRAC or the CRP specifically, but I just think that is where I see the most strength in the consistency.
Thank you, Sarah. Jerry?
Thank you, Peter. I just have some basic questions about the organization that's doing this harbor review. Under what are the auspices under which is this part of the Department of Environmental Protection? Is this a state function? Where did you get the funding from? And who appointed the members of this committee? I just don't have any information about that. I'm just curious about it.
You want to take that, Kim or Kristen?
Yeah, I can take a stab at it, and then Kim, you can fill in the blanks where I've gotten things wrong. Gary, this is part of a state program that, as Kim was mentioning, the Office of Coastal Zone Management and the Department of Environmental Protection run. And it's a regulatory program. So the DEP is the one that signs off on the plan. CZM also signs off on the plan. And then the DEP is the one that has to look at the plan when it's trying to issue things like Chapter 91 licenses. It will have to look at the plan in order to ensure consistency with what the town was looking for when it submitted this plan. So there is an approval process that will happen at the end of the plan. The town raised the funds internally. I'm not exactly sure what the source was, but we're working with the Department of Natural Resources. Jeff Carlson and Tara Riley are the ones who reached out to us. We did submit a proposal. It was a competitive process. We are the Urban Harbors Institute at UMass Boston. We do a number of these plans with communities all around the state, and we often partner with Woods Hole Group, which is where DAC is from. Did I answer all your questions? Did I miss anything?
I think so. Thank you.
Okay.
But also, to add to that, Kristen, the Urban Harbors Institute has done our previous two harbor plans, the one in 1990, I think 1993, is that right? And 2009, and the Nantucket and Mattocket Harbors Action Plan Update Committee. The members, I believe, were appointed by the Select Board. But each of the people that are represented on the board, I think, those people were appointed by their respective boards because the Select Board said, or I believe Jeff Carlson had some say in it, which town review boards needed to be represented on the harbor plan. And then there are 3 at-large members that had to be, appointed by the Select Board. So, and we got going and started having our meetings in February of 2023. And we met for probably a few months, just one meeting a month, and then we agreed we needed to meet twice a month. So we're a legitimate town of Nantucket committee, working on the harbor plan update.
And when I find the chat, I'll put the URL to the website in the chat so that you can look at the website and dig in as you want.
And I might suggest, and I'll tell the members of this committee, of our committee, the CRAG committee, that the process of gathering public information, public input for the harbor plan involved several public meetings where we invited the public to come and tell our committee how we should update the plan. We did an online survey. I think we got 537 responses, which is like some sort of record from for UHI doing these plans. And another way to gather information was to actually have individual interviews with Nantucketers. So this might be a thing that us as members of CRAG could submit to an interview with a harbor plan and add our 2 cents worth, in addition to our committee as a group providing recommendations for the plan. Leah, go ahead.
Just wanted to reply to Kristen. I don't think we have the chat feature in this, but you can email me and I'll forward it to the members.
Peter.
Oh, you want it, Gary? Yep.
I just had one more comment. I thought that the comments that this group obtained from the public were very, very interesting, and I think meaningful for all of us, because the same comments from the public relate to so much of what our coastal resiliency plan suggests and proposes. And so it was good to get that extra feedback from no matter how and wherever we get the comments from the public. I think that's helpful in all cases. And I was interested to see the comments that they received. They were very interesting. Thank you.
And on that, Gary, I just want to say that it's been very encouraging how many people are interested in updating the harbor plan, how much, public engagement we've gotten. It's very, it's inspiring to see so many people caring about the harbor and all the different viewpoints. So definitely. All right, so Leah and Tim, where do we go from here?
Did we want to continue discussing some of the bullets here, or do we have time?
How much time do we have, Peter?
Yeah. It's 10:34, maybe another 5 or 10 minutes.
I think the next important one, I think, would be I guess the third bullet, or the second bullet. Yeah. This was alluded to by Alan and myself, how much of the existing harbor plan should be reiterated. There are 15 projects that fell within the harbor plan boundaries that are also in the coastal resiliency plan. Should all of them be included in what we're preparing? They were prioritized. They were given a rank first, second, or third. It says those priorities have changed or not. And are there other new projects that exist now since that plan was put out from 2021 that may be included in ours?
Okay, I have Joanna Roach has a question or a comment. Go ahead, Joanna.
Thanks, Peter. This is another thing that just from me offering this to the group, I would be happy to publish any of these things in the newsletter for Mariah Mitchell Association, right? I think it's pertinent to our mission and the work that we're doing. And I'd be happy to have like a little introductory thing and then a link to any of either the feedback from the public or the plan itself. I think this is a way to, have nonprofits on the island who are involved in sort of science and conservation explain these things to our constituents. And I know that our constituents think these things are important.
Thanks, Joanna. Gary, go ahead.
As far as going forward, I'd like to suggest one way to think about this, and that is as part of our meeting today, when we get to it, we're talking about priorities that we have and perhaps reprioritization some of the projects. I think that once we finish that work and once we have reorganized our priorities to the extent that we may wish to do that, then I think it's important to take a look at what our priorities are, and the harbor plan should take a look and see if there's any crossover or conflict between what our key priorities are and what the harbor plan is proposing and looking at issues that they are looking at, because there are priorities, and hopefully there'll be the harbor plan priorities as well. That's my suggestion.
Okay, thanks, Gary. Sarah Boyce, and then Matt Fee.
Thanks, Peter. Yeah, I think one of the questions I kind of have back to you is that, with the CRP, we've talked about it like a living document, so it is, a published document, but it's meant to be like the priorities are meant to be revisited. And so if there is the desire, I think that's good for an overlap between the two plans, or for the harbor plan to use or take advantage of the work in the CRP. I think there must be a way that you can point to the parts of the document that are the living parts, right? So whether it's we have a section on the Coastal Resilience or the CRAC website that has that prioritization, or just the line item in the harbor plan, something along the lines of, the projects being in line with the priorities of the CRP. I think we want to take advantage. We don't want anything to be so static that it's like, these are the projects we are doing in this order. Obviously new things happen. There are changes. We didn't expect to have 120 feet of erosion in front of the sewer beds in 2 years. So I think, I'm assuming that you are happy, there's this way to it to be changeable with changing conditions. And so I also think the way that the harbor plan points to the coastal resiliency projects should reflect that. But I do think instead of reiterating them again and again in the harbor plan, is just to point to the coastal resiliency plan itself, and highlight it. And so, obviously it depends on what the product looks like that you're putting forth. But I think that's the best way, is to make sure that it's reiterated that these are changing conditions and that priorities may shift.
I agree with you, Sarah. Very good comments. I got Matt Fee and then Leah.
Yeah, no, I think it's very good, Sarah. I agree with that. I do think one of the issues that we're dealing with, it's interesting that Mattakit they were looking at a cost benefit and sort of laid it aside, it sounds like, or said break it up smaller. I think that a lot of what we have right now is easy for us to recommend because we don't know how we're going to pay for it or who's going to pay. I think the difficulty will come when we start putting numbers to it. And so I think that, so my recommendation would be, let's get the most needed ones that are affordable, and, and then we've got to grapple with the others. And then I'll jump to the last one. You're asking about public access. We have a culture of public access island-wide to the harbor and to the ocean. It is something that we, battle with homeowners over. We have looked at it differently than the rest of Massachusetts for 200, 300 years. I would argue we're not bound by the same rules because we came into Massachusetts after the public trust doctrine, and we have access, and we've used access up to the high tide mark, which is different than a lot of the state. So I think we want to reinforce that we have that's how we do things. We do need another boat ramp or two, and I'm sure you guys are talking about that. Thank you.
Yes, we have. Go ahead, Leah.
Thanks, Peter. I want to agree with Sarah that, they should, whatever priorities are listed within the harbor plans, there should be a caveat that, the implementation years may shift due to increased or reduced risk. But I do think it's important to keep the coastal resilience plan projects that are within the boundaries and also put them into the harbor plan, because when we are applying for grants, it may be more competitive if we say this project is both in the harbor plan and the coastal resilience plan and the hazard mitigation plan, so that it really shows that there is a lot of community support behind it and also town support, and that may leverage it. So I don't think that there's a problem having an overlap with the coastal resilience projects within the harbor plan. I think that it would actually be really beneficial for us. And then for the last question about the DEP, I just wanted to remind CRAC that we had the director of waterways come to this meeting a couple of months ago to talk about this, and you all wrote a letter to DEP talking about public access. So you may want to include that in the plan as well.
So I don't see any more hands. I want to get some public comment, but I want to make sure that we're not done with this yet and that we take some time between now and our next meeting, which I believe is February 13th. Is that correct, Leah?
Yes.
To really think about this, so then we can come up with how we want it to integrate both ways. So I will take public comment on this item. Is there anybody from the public that has anything to say about this item? Use the raise the hand feature in the reactions, has a little smiley face down below. Okay. I'm not seeing any. So, all right. So I guess we'll just move on. Thank you, Kim. Thank you, Alan. Thank you, Dak. Thank you, Kristen. We very much appreciate your time.
Thanks for having us. We look forward to collaborating in the future.
Be talking again, I'm sure.
Yes,
Take care,
thank you
everyone.
guys so much.
Thank you.
Okay, update on Coastal Resilience Advisory Committee's application for the offshore wind grant. Approval to submit needed. Go ahead, Leah.
Thank you, Peter. I am almost done with the grant application. Thanks to Rachel and Emma for helping out a lot, and Sarah and Jen for offering to review. So we're just waiting for a couple estimates for the film. And then once we get those in today, tomorrow, then it will be ready for submittal. So last meeting, you all, through consensus, agreed for me to write the grant. But I just, at this meeting, would like someone to make a motion to be able to submit the grant in for the offshore wind funding.
Okay, do I have someone who'd like to make that motion?
Also move.
So moved.
Okay, Gary, do we have a second?
Second.
Second from Jen. Okay, by roll call vote. Just going to go right across the screen. Gary?
Aye.
Jen?
Aye.
Christy?
Aye.
Rachel?
Aye.
Doug?
Aye.
Joanna?
Aye.
Matt?
Abstain.
Sarah?
Aye.
And the chair votes aye. All right, thanks, everybody. Okay, so discussion on site visit to sewer treatment plant facility. I guess this is just a after action review. Does anybody have anything they want to say about, or those of us who went to it, about our visit? Go ahead, Sarah.
Yeah, this just real quick, if anyone wasn't able to attend, or even those who did, the Nantucket Current had some really great aerials yesterday that was posted. I see Jason Graziade is on our meeting today, but Kit Noble did a drone flyover, and it really, from the air, showed a lot of that erosion. I know we were standing at that corner on the inside of the fence. It was very cold. You guys all heard me complain about it, but to also see it from the air, it was really striking how much, how much was lost. And then the materials that Leah presented or shared with us, the map that showed how much land in front of the fence that there had been how much driving had been done in front of the fence in the past, was striking when we're out there too. So and then I also just want to thank David Gray for giving us a fantastic tour and answering all our questions and really spending the time with us that day. So I really appreciated that personally.
Thanks, Sarah. You kind of took a lot of what I was going to say, but what I would add to that is, if you haven't been out there, you haven't gotten a tour, find a way to go and do that, because then you'll get a great sense of what's at stake if we lose that, if we get it damaged, if what happens if the water comes in even more, and even if you just want to get a hold of them and say you want to walk around and take a look and get a sense of the how severe the erosion is, or if you just want to walk down the beach and not go in there at all, I urge you guys who didn't go just to go and do that. Go ahead, Matt.
Yeah, no, I went out and walked around a little bit before you guys did. And I think I look at that and I think of how, I know there's some plans to fill in the beds and that'll give us 40 or 50 more years. I know that was the quote. I'm not so sure that is true. And, seeing how much it's eroding right now and realizing that those beds are all at a low point. And when you look at the, sort of future, what do you call it? Future tide flow, future, loss there on the maps, going, facing the water, going to the right, that direction, though, that is a lot of area that's going to be inundated. So I'm sure that's all low. It was probably one of the old ponds that was out there. So I kind of think we as a group or the town should be thinking about how do they put in, some sort of structured dune or some sort of protection earlier rather than later, and do that, do that and try to build a dune field maybe where those closest, where they're filling in the closest beds. Maybe that's where we should be doing something and thinking ahead now. So there's my 2 cents.
Okay, so I see you, Christy. I just wanted to inform Matt that when David took us out to ground zero, I guess, where the erosion was the closest, he was telling us about how he is investigating the cost of steel sheeting to sort of pre-protect the sewer beds, drive that sheeting in all around the area to protect, to get ready for what's coming. And what he was running up against was the extreme cost of steel. So he's definitely thinking about it. He's absolutely thinking about it. Go ahead, Christy.
Yeah, no, I was just going to kind of reiterate what Sarah had mentioned. David was great and very eager to show us around, and I wanted to just encourage Leah to find those other projects that are site visible, because they are extremely valuable, I think, for us to see and have a visual update, just want to encourage more.
Great, thanks. I agree, Christy. Jen?
Thanks, Pete. I think one of the things that I found reassuring about the visit was obviously not the erosion and the extended impact, but the fact that there were some very obviously well thought out plans for what to do in the area that, Dave is working towards and the sewer department is working towards solutions out there that made sense to me. And then this was also mentioned, and Rachel, sorry if I'm stepping on anything, but that Dave and the land bank are talking together about what to do with adjacent properties and how to, some of that area you're talking about, Matt, thinking about it, if there's some resilience efforts to put there. So there are some cross-department conversations happening about increasing resilience out there, and that there are options. It's just the town or the sewer department needs the resources to move forward with those options. And that for crack, I think our job is continuing to check in on the progress. So this is one of the projects we should stay on top of, tracking responses to. And if there are ways that our voice can help Dave and the sewer department get the resources that they need, or we can advocate for that, I think we should keep that on our radar.
Agreed. Okay, I don't see any more hands. Are there? Oh, go ahead, Sarah.
Yeah, just one other thing real quick that I was surprised about for those who didn't go on that field trip was the amount of equipment and data collection that's happening on site. So not just the sewer department, obviously the operations of the sewer, very impressive. I learned so much. But in terms of that corner area where the beds are that are near the fence, I think it was like Woods Hole, NOAA, EPA. There were so many different monitoring pieces of equipment that, and someone else correct me if I'm wrong, that weren't associated with the sewer operations themselves, but with the conditions of that area. Maybe it's water quality too, but anyway, the amount of data that they're collecting there was, I hadn't really even thought about it before. So I don't know how much of that is informative to other things that are happening there in terms of work to make that area more resilient. But that was an unofficial inventory of the data collection sensors and things that they have, but it was impressive.
All right, thank you, Sarah. We've got a hand raised from Jason Krause. Jason, do you want to go ahead?
Yeah, hey, thanks, Peter, and hey, everyone. Yeah, we were down there yesterday, and we saw that they had started work on filling in that bed. And I've been playing a little phone tag with David, but I'm just wondering, with your when you guys did the tour, did he speak at all to the impact on the operations of filling that bed? Is there any impact on the operations of the plant or capacity or anything like that? Just curious. I've just been playing phone tag on that question with him, so thank you.
Thanks, Jason. Christy, do you want to answer that?
Yeah, just one thing I do remember him saying. He said if we lost 2 beds, we wouldn't even know it. Obviously, it is property that we rely on and will rely on, but I think that I do remember that comment that he made. And I know that the plant has a lot of excess built into it. So I think that to answer your question, Jason, somewhat from my being on site is the answer would be no. It wouldn't really affect operations at all.
Thanks, Christy. Leah?
Thanks, Peter. Yeah, just going off what Christy said, David's on vacation, I think, until early February, but they're filling in that bed because they don't use that one. But he did say that if that gets infiltrated with salt water, it's going to affect all the other beds. So that's why they're doing what they're doing.
And that's why they were talking about steel sheeting. I'm sure that's pending, depending on the costs. Does those answer your questions, Jason?
Yes, thank you, guys. Appreciate it.
All right. Any other questions from members of the public on this item? You're not a member of the public, Sarah. Go ahead.
Sorry. Sorry, I had a lot of coffee today. I have lots of questions. No, just from this group, because this question didn't occur to me when we were on the field trip, is there a point where it's considered or what's the threshold for being considered an emergency situation where certain measures can come into play to protect that infrastructure? Because I'm thinking of the steel sheeting, for example, or other potential emergency measures to protect those beds. I can imagine, let's say worst case scenario, there's infiltration of salt water into that bed, which then affects all the other beds, which affects the full operation of the sewer plant. At what point is there oh my gosh, this is an emergency situation? And I don't know if there is such a thing as some kind of decree that makes some of the protection measures speedier. I don't know if I'm saying this right, but basically when is it oh my gosh, we really need to do something,
Thanks, Leah. Go ahead.
Sarah, I don't have a particular answer for that, but I know that in early February, him and the members from the natural resources are going to be meeting with DEP regarding the erosion at the site and kind of next steps, and then a risk and feasibility assessment. That's the first thing that needs to happen. And I would assume that through that, they would figure out, at what level is this an emergency? And then also what can we do there? So I know David, mentioned steel sheeting, but the feasibility study would look at potentially that, and then everything else that could be permittable in that area.
Thanks, Leah. Matt?
Yeah, I've asked at the select board level, whether when we were doing the piping from downtown, the sewer pipes out to the plant, I asked, should we really be looking to move this to higher ground? Should we be going, somewhere else on Mid-Island? I don't know where, but and was told, no, there's enough, we have enough time here, and and there's a way to protect this, et cetera, et cetera. So, I don't, maybe that has changed within a year or so, year or two, but that was the answer then, that we were fine where we were. And I think some of the other point is, I think some of the beds aren't necessary because they've added extra steps in their process, and so they're able to do it more quickly.
Thanks, Matt. Christy?
Yeah, to kind of answer Matt's question a little bit, I do recall David, he didn't seem worried about relocating at this point. There was a comment that whatever you lose there, maybe you put in a supplemental plant somewhere else, so you're not committing to the full deal. But I recall him not really worrying about having to move the plant at this point, which would be, I mean, with all the buildings and equipment that we walk through, like it's an unbelievable undertaking. But going back to the beds real quick, there was some comments about, I'm always on the fence about steel sheathing. I always think that when you put that up, there's going to be a reaction somewhere else, like on the edges, and but there was a comment that came up that about if you fill the beds, that can become like new frontage, your new frontage, and hopefully that also buys you a little time. But he does have, I think, a few more bed expansion areas on that site if he needed. But I actually thought all those beds were fully used all the time, but I get the feeling I understood that they're not. They're using maybe two at a time. So anyway, just a few comments.
Thank you. Any more comments from the committee? Any more comments from the public? No. Okay, I know some of us who went out there wanted to see the cats they were talking about, and we didn't see any cats. So I think it's funny that they have a cat named Sludgy.
Peter, just one point.
Yeah, go ahead.
I will say, if there was water getting close, if the sea was getting close to the property that the town owned for that plant property, then it would cause a problem with access as far as vehicles traveling on the outside of that the sewer beds. There might be a time when that is not doable, because that where the sea meets the sewer plant is too close for any actually travel to pass on the beach and have access. Just to throw that there.
Yeah, I can definitely see it being closed off. And it comes up against that bank, or it comes up against the sewer bed. So, yeah, good point. Okay, unless there's more comments, I'm thinking we're ready to move on. Okay. So, update on Conservation Commission meeting regarding proposed updates to local wetlands regulation. I'm sure you all saw the letter that I wrote in the packet, and I just want to say a little bit about that. I read it; it was no big deal, but I think we were a little bit misinformed, because we were told that we wouldn't be able to comment on the expansion of wetlands buffer zones near salt marshes from 25 to 50 feet. I mean, that's what I went off of. That's what I knew. And then at the meeting, there were people talking about it. So there may be another time when we write another letter and then read that at a meeting so that we can comment on that. But just want to let you know that there were people talking about it and they were taking comments. So I wrote this letter. We kind of didn't know about the letter in time for me to write the letter and then you guys to vote on it. And so you trusted me, and I didn't get any nasty emails from anybody about what I wrote, so I assumed that what I wrote was okay. But in the future, we need to know whatever is coming up for situations where we need to comment and advise. We need to be able to vet the letter that's written. And I appreciate you trusting me writing this letter, but it'd be good to know if a hearing is coming up and we need to speak on it, and so we can talk about what's going to be said, so that I am representing all of your thoughts. Just wanted to make you aware that that was on my mind when I was reading this. So, Matt, go ahead.
Peter, I think you did an excellent job. It's a really well written letter, and you know, our trust was well placed.
Thanks. I appreciate that a lot, because I was really nervous when I was reading it. But Leah, go ahead.
Thanks, Peter. I don't know if you said this before because I had to run out, but if you are offering letters of support or commenting on things, you need to remember that you are advisors to the select board. So you need to check in with the select board to see if that's something that you can put forth.
Okay. All right. Any members of the public want to make a comment about this? Okay, so we'll move on to update on Article 10 regarding coastal resiliency funds by Leah Hill, Town of Nantucket Coastal Resilience Coordinator.
Thanks, Peter. So I just wanted to go over what the natural resources internal project review process is. So in the past, generally what happens is we all meet with Jeff, our director, and put forth some projects that we would like to get implemented in the next year, couple years. And so he compiles all of those and then goes through them for CRP projects. We use, the great chart that's on page 250 with the implementation years, and use the priorities as well to put those forth. And then he looks at all of the natural resources projects, so coastal resilience projects, sustainability projects, factory projects, all of that stuff, and sees what will go forth to capital. And then capital works through all of that, and they decide ultimately which projects move forward to town meeting. So I just wanted to recap that. Jeff spoke a couple months ago about our process, so just wanted to reiterate that. And then in your packet is the Finance Department's capital projects collision presentation. And so I'm not going to go over that whole thing because you can listen to the select board meeting back in September when Brian Turbert gave this, but I just wanted to highlight a couple of key slides that are on it. So the first is to execute the collision. The town is resource constrained and has a backlog of funded projects. So constraints include budgeting and staffing of a program management office to properly sequence competing projects, staff resources to actually deliver the projects, management oversight, competing priorities and contingent for materials, unknown permitting timelines, local support, and then any unexpected things that may come up. So for the upcoming meeting in May, we have the Tacoma Y employee housing, design and construction going forward, public safety auxiliary building construction for that, Somerset needs area sewer extension, which is design, and then a Parks and Rec master plan projects. And then at the special town meeting, a new public works facility. So this just goes over the process of capital projects. So basically in Q1, so that starts in July, the town departments submit project requests, which are reviewed and prioritized by the town manager. The next step is capital committee reviews, prioritizes, takes up down votes, and then finance committee provides a motion. Step 3, the select board approves capital articles to annual town meeting warrant. Step 4, potential funding sources determined, tax revenues, free cash, or debt. And then town meeting approval, and then design RFPs, bids as necessary. And if supplemental funding is required, then start that all over again. Not going to go over that. Okay, so for this town meeting, there's the Tacoma Way Town Employee Housing. It's estimated at 11 million. Public Safety Auxiliary Building, estimated at 5 million. Somerset needs area sewer extension, about 5.5 million. Parks and Recreation Master Plan, 3 million. And then solid waste facilities potential purchases, TBD. And then for another 50 million plus, the Public Works facility. And these are potential ones for next year. Again, a lot of money, equaling about 129 million. So also to be determined in the potential capital improvement plan is the coastal resilience planning recommendations, scope of PFAS, hazard mitigation updates, transportation center, and then transportation projects. So I just wanted to show that there is a lot of, unfortunately, competitiveness with what projects are moved forward through capital and with the town. And then I went through the coastal resilience plan and picked out the projects that have not been started that had implementation dates of 2023, 2024, 2025, and 2026. And so just to go over those, I kind of went over them last week, but there's the updates to zoning bylaw, strategic retreat and relocation program, stormwater management plan, sediment budget, stormwater bylaws assessment, stormwater bylaw and regulation update, building scale resilience at 37 Washington Street, Ames Avenue Bridge, Matticat erosion management pilot, and Ames Avenue Bridge protection, Department of Public Works facility and landfill resilience, numerical modeling study of Coatue breaching, Wisconsin Bluff nearshore breakwaters feasibility study, Surfside wastewater treatment plant dune restoration, and Surfside emergency access planning. So going back to slide 1, the stormwater management plan and kind of those associated bylaws with it, that the sewer department is working on that and hoping to start that in the next year or so. The strategic retreat and relocation program, that is in for capital request. I'm not sure where that is with the capital committee. Maybe Christy can speak on that. If it is not funded this year, hopefully we'll be able to use the Article 10 funding for it. And then the building scale resilience at 37 Washington Street, I'm putting in a grant for the offshore wind to do a feasibility study on that building and then use the extra money for actually implementing those recommendations. So hopefully we get funding for that. There was $1 million allocated in fiscal year 24, the last town meeting, to look at the Ames Avenue Bridge resilience and the pilot project as well. And then again, you can't do the sediment budget until sediment transport study is complete. The DPW landfill, the town admin is looking into that. I think the latest was maybe the Shadbush location, but Matt, if you have any further info on that, please let us know. And then also putting in a grant for the offshore wind for the Surfside emergency access planning, because our erosion monitoring site is right at this location at the intersection of Noniactum and Lovers. And we've lost 59 feet in the last couple weeks with these storms. For the last 2 years, that area has actually been pretty stable, but it just shows how erosion is quite episodic, with losing 59 feet during a couple storm events in a little over a couple weeks. So with that all being said, I added up all of the high, moderate, and low prioritizations with the high estimates, and then converted it to 2023 dollars. And with that, it's about $156 million. The low estimate for all of those projects is about 138 million. But a majority of the money was for the Surfside wastewater treatment plant, so $43 million, and the Matticat erosion management and Eaves Ave bridge resilience, which is 109 million, leaving about 4 million from the high estimates for other projects. So I would think that the wastewater treatment and the Matticat stuff, or the wastewater treatment would probably be a capital project, but the Matticat resilience, like Dak had said in our earlier presentation, to break that up into smaller pieces, because if you recall, it's basically from Matticat public beach access all the way down to Smith's Point. So it's a huge area. That's why the estimate is very high. But to break that into smaller pieces that are more manageable, and focus on that, for example, public parking lot and at the end of Matticat Road. So that would probably be a bit more feasible. So the starred projects in the matrix, that estimate is about $1.4 million to implement from the projects for 2023 through 2026. Excuse me. So with the Article 10 money, again, it's $1 million a year for coastal resilience planning. That is not within the Natural Resources Department, that is with town administration. So they get to decide which departments and projects can be funded with that money. And so it could be, if the DPW is doing some sort of resilience project, they can apply for that money. It doesn't have to necessarily be a recommendation within the coastal resilience plan. So to date, the Article 10 money that's already been used is about $680,000. And that includes projects, some of the money for the Baxter Road project, the Sacajah Pond project that I'm the project manager on for that nearshore reef and living shoreline road protection. Part of it, $110,000, was for the CZM grant match for the downtown neighborhood flood barrier initial phase. And then $250,000 is for splitting the schematic design for the Washington Street resilience plan that Land Bank has been putting forth. So the town is partnering with them on that for the first phase of that project. So the Francis Street Beach, the area across from there, that's just grassland, and then not grassland, grass, and then the Salt Marsh Center. So that remaining is $1.3 million to date, and then if everything goes through a town meeting, there'll be another $1 million put forth. So that would be $2.3 million. So just wanted to discuss here, I know one of your recommendations was to increase that Article 10 funding to the select board. So just wanted to start a discussion and see, what is the purpose of increasing that funding? And then we also need the staff to implement those projects. So of course, it's great to have more money for coastal resilience projects, totally agree. But if we're not having the staffing or the support or what have you to actually implement those projects in a given year and not spending the money, then we got to reevaluate. So yeah, that's where we are. Just want to give an update on that. I'm going to stop sharing now.
Okay, thanks, Leah. Thank you. Does anyone have comments or questions for Leah? Joanna, go ahead.
I didn't hear this, but I could have missed it. There's also $100,000 in the admin budget for a grant coordinator as an outside contractor. I just wanted to, since we've talked about this at this meeting multiple times, so it's a contract position, and I asked when they made the presentation at the finance committee how that would be structured. And so it would be, because I was curious as to how they were going to decide how to use this person or how to deploy them, really. And I think that it would be split across departments who asked for help. And my understanding of what that looks like is, say that there was a grant that this group, I'm going to use it as an example for us, right? Because that's most relevant. If there was a grant that we wanted to try to apply for, we could go and ask the town for either a budget or support for either grant writing help or administration of the project. So I thought that was good news for us.
Joanna, this is the position they're trying to create and fund. That's what you're saying, and that's on the warrant this year.
Yeah, it's not a position. It's going to be a consultant. So they put $100,000 in the admin budget for being able to hire a person who would either help to write the grant or help to coordinate the project once a grant is awarded.
Okay, excellent. Anyone else? Christy.
Yeah, no, I was going to say it was a good recap on Leah's part. Detailed a lot of that financing, and as far as the admin funding of $1 million, whether that is something that the admin feels is what I see happening is that is just a good flexible account for them to use for any department that sort of is dealing with any sort of coastal resiliency issues. Not to say it's all earmarked for natural resources, something like that, but I do see that natural resources with some of their requests and more coming in this realm. I think that that's where we're going to see important funding decisions, really, because those are really backed by the staff as far as moving those projects along on this list. As far as there's a lot of effort, I should say, going towards stormwater this year, being a new department, fairly new enterprise fund. There's a big effort there, which is great. As far as natural resources, I know that the committee did not approve the climate action plan. I think there was still some, it was a little vague, and I think there was still some I think the committee just wanted to see a little more. We did meet with Jeff and Vince in one of our meetings, and I think they just felt that was just not really there yet. It was kind of I think a first year request. But everything else looked pretty good. Some of the other stuff that Jeff's brought forward. Otherwise, I mean, I see, the message of coastal resiliency is definitely present. That will continue on.
Thanks, Christy. Doug?
Yeah, just an observation, and I have not scrutinized the list as much as I probably should have, so I apologize. But two thoughts. One, I think the CRP can be an important guiding document as far as initiating and driving certain major projects. And I think we all kind of recognize that. There's another way that the CRP can influence the decision-making of town leaders, and that is making sure that other initiatives that aren't overtly CRP related are also informed by the knowledge in the CRP. So as an example, I'm just going to pick on one that caught my eye, was we're going to invest more money to rebuild or refurbish the tennis courts. And I just wonder, and I trust that someone who's knowledgeable about the elevation of that area understands what the flood risks are, what the potential downside is of investing money in an area that could be very, very prone to future flooding. So I just throw that as an example. I hope that that filter is being applied, the CRP filter is being applied to all of those capital initiatives. And I'll leave it at that. Thanks.
Go ahead, Joanna.
That's a great question, Doug. I can tell you that at the finance committee level, we talk about this regularly, and I'm confident that, I'm sure Christy can chime in. I'm sure that they're talking about this at the capital committee as well, right? Everyone's aware that this is an issue.
And before Matt talks, I just want to say, yeah, it's a good point. As we go through our lives on the island, paying attention to how much climate resilience has permeated town government and our people talking about it and thinking in those ways. It's good for all of us to report back to this committee that you heard this, we heard that. It's a way of thinking that should be just common sense. So I'm glad to hear this. Go ahead, Matt. You're on mute, Matt.
I thought the same thing, Doug. I meant to ask it, but I didn't when we did the warrant. I did bring, we see it, I think also it's there, but I'm not sure it's raised to the level that it needs to be yet all the way. I think that some of these projects kind of get an inertia, they get a momentum, they get a momentum of their own, and then they keep going. I would use the, what is it? The harbor master building down on the water that, I kept asking, has this been, have we taken coastal resiliency into account? Oh yeah, it's fine. But then you look and we maybe kind of really didn't. And so it's sort of, and then it takes a few years and then the things cost even more. So I think it's there, but it's not, fully baked in yet. Tom Nevers Fields is another one. We're seeing the erosion there. Should we really be putting fields, and maybe that should just be a really nice park area? Maybe we should make, there's things that need to go. We need to be a little more aware. And I think if we don't do it, I'm not sure the Park and Rec group is going to read all of our stuff or go measure, et cetera. They want to do, they want fields, they want the rec. The harbor master wants to be near the water. So I think that we have to, our job kind of is to inform the select board. We are looking at moving the town is looking at moving the DPW, and they were originally going to spend 16 million. It's probably $32 million now, but they were thinking of rebuilding that on site. And, the fact that it's in a storm tide pathway and this group and myself pushed has got them to look elsewhere. It's going to be at high ground somewhere in Mid-Island. The next thing out there will be, is there a way to, sort of find a technology that will allow us to start, sort of getting rid of those hills, getting rid of the landfill, so that in 30, 40, 50 years, when we do have issues, we're not hard armoring, a bunch of pollution. But that's, that's a future thing, but it's something to think about. I'm going to make a plug. We just looked at the slides, and one of the plugs had, I think it was 12 or 16 million for Surfside. And originally that was going to be 3 or 4 or 5. It wasn't, and even then I was arguing that should have been bettered, that all those properties were bought and they understood that the roads weren't great there and they needed to be upgraded at some point. You would have thought, but that is betterments are very hard to put in place because the people that are being bettered don't want to do it. They don't want to have an extra cost if they can put it on the taxpayers. And the staff doesn't really want to do it because it's more work. And then they get a lot of complaints from the people they're bettering. So, but I think if you look at those numbers, I think that we should have bettered at least half of that, because then that project would already be funded and it would be done. But it's politically unpopular. So we have to really, I think, when we're prioritizing, they asked, Leah asked us to prioritize the projects. And what I put at the top of my priority is a betterment and coastal resilience sort of design. in regulations. We have to figure out how we're going to pay for these and not make it all on the taxpayers. That's almost number one for me, even though it's not in the coast. It's sort of in the coastal resiliency. It talks about it a little bit, but I think it needs to be raised to a higher level so that we can stretch our dollars and do more. Thank you.
Thanks, Matt. Christie.
Yeah, just Matt brings up a good point from something I thought about that, as we put together these outlooks and forecasts, whether it's 2027, 2030, 50, whatever, these could become the sort of the points where we are making decisions, because some of these decisions are probably based on, well, how many years do we have out before the tennis courts are going to be really become an issue? So a lot of that, obviously recreation is also very important on the island. And I think that it could come down to maybe some of these decisions and requests are happening. And depending on what the forecast is, for coastal flooding or management, however you want to look at it, could be the sort of one of the deciding factors on whether these requests really get approved.
Okay, thank you, Christie. Go ahead, Doug.
Yeah, just to follow up back to Matt's point. Matt, you've spoken about this many, many times, and I sense some frustration in your voice. I guess I'm equally frustrated, and I wonder is there someone in town government that really feels like they are accountable to deliver that solution that you're craving? Is it town council? And if it is, what's the timing? When is it due? Who's on first? Because I feel like many times these issues are vaguely defined, not quite sure who owns it. And then, why should we be surprised if years later nothing's happened? Thank you.
Christie, go ahead. Thanks, Doug. No, okay. Do we have any more comments? No. Okay. Any public comments on this item? Oh, Matthew, go ahead.
Just a quick comment to Doug. I'm not sure, ultimately Libby owns it, or, select board or Libby own it. But I'm not sure, sort of the idea of betterments or betterments versus a coastal resiliency district. We've had town council was working on the coastal resiliency district. And this is the hard part with hiring town council or not having, sort of enough committee time or staff time or, a work group time here, is there's still a lot of details that have to be worked out. And I worry, my concern on the coastal resiliency district is that we'll look at that as our solution, but it could be 2 years or 5 years or 10 years up in Boston. And so we really need to get to the betterment aspect, and that hasn't really been pursued yet. And so I guess, I'll blame myself. I need to push a vote at the select board level, but sometimes even when you vote, if the staff, I'll use paid parking as an example. We voted that 5, 6, 7 years ago, and it keeps getting put on hold. So the staff has to have the buy-in. So I would say for this type of thing, this needs to be Leah and Vince and Jeff, and this, really pushing to make sure that those things happen, because otherwise their whole, I would say their whole, and I'm sure they are, but their whole, agenda, the whole thing will just be on, we'll just be talking, it'll be studies and talk, and we won't really get to the meat of it if we're not careful. So thank you.
Thanks, Matt. Thanks for the clarification. Leah, go ahead.
Thanks, Peter. Yeah, I think more needs to be looked into for betterments, but the big thing is with betterments, I don't know how you add in operation and maintenance, and all of these coastal resilience projects need operation and maintenance to be able to be effective and work correctly. So just wanted to comment on that.
Thanks, Leah. Rachel.
Thanks, Peter. I guess I just and this is counter to how I usually feel, but when I was ranking the projects for homework, I realized that I was leaning in towards the planning projects, and Matt just called them out as like you run the risk of when you do these planning projects, it becomes a study that sits on a shelf, right? But what I was realizing is that so many of the answers, I think, and sort of garnering that support actually can lie in effective planning project or an effective planning process. So it was interesting how I was thinking to myself, all these, sure, we could go and I'm just going to pick one, redo the bridge at Ames Ave or whatever, right? But if we've actually looked at strategic retreat and relocation, maybe that is ranked somewhere differently. So and like I said, this is totally counterintuitive to how I would normally look at this, but I actually think we really need to think through how to make this planning process effective and look at some of these studies and some of these assessments, because a lot of those projects are all encompassed within them. Thank you.
Thanks, Rachel. Matt?
Yeah, just a quick, and I think Yulia is right that we have to do maintenance, but the question that I've had to town council, for a betterment, you're doing a vote at town meeting and you have to know the amount. And then we're spreading that out over the people that are benefiting for it's 15 or 20 years, whatever the time period is. So the town has to put the money up and get it back. But let's say you're doing something like we're doing it, out in with SBPF. We should, could, and I believe should be voting an amount, a very large amount for maintenance, etc. We should be voting an area of the people that benefit and leave it for them. If they continue to put the sand on, that's going to save them money. That's going to save them time and money, and it'll comply. But if they don't comply, we've already voted the money and we can go and do it. The question of, okay, let's say we're running out of money for something. You maybe there's a yearly vote for different areas for their maintenance and et cetera. So there's, and this is the details that, a committee and or staff and et cetera need to work out. But I am very concerned that we are going to be, that if we don't figure that out soon, we're going to be talking about the same, or my son or daughter is going to be on this committee talking about the same things 15 years from now. So thank you.
Thanks, Matt. Christy?
Yeah, I was gonna ask Leah maybe what if you could remind us at some point what projects out there are highly visible to the public, because it'll be interesting to see, because right now it seems like there's a lot of, there's zoning and there's permitting and funding and design. I think it's until we get that significant visible structural infrastructure coastal resiliency project, will it at that point is when it'll hit the public that coastal resiliency is a significant thing to start considering. So maybe we haven't had that yet. I'm a big fan of the Folger Marsh Bridge. That was also not funded because design and permitting was 1.2 million, and the project is not slated until 2035. So that's one I would love to see moved forward. I remember when we had the meeting with it might have been the team from Falmouth, I think, talking about the coastal resiliency issues up there, and they had a design of a bridge there that had some nice fans underneath that helped get coastal water to a wetland, and it was quite nice. But I just recall that being a perfect application for that Folger Marsh Bridge. But anyway, I just wanted to point out that the site of physical projects will really hammer home, I think, which is why I would love to start getting projects that are really much more in the public view than just sort of behind the scenes. But I'm sure I'd like to see if Leah could just elaborate. I might be forgetting something, but
okay.
Yeah, sure. Is it okay?
Go ahead. Yeah, go ahead, Leah. Thanks, Christy.
Okay, thank you. So Christy, to answer your question, the downtown neighborhood flood barrier, the Easy Street part. So the initial phase, we just had a kickoff for that. So that is definitely in the public eye. And if the public was here, was that 2 weeks ago, then they would see that we need that project ASAP because it got flooded twice in 1 week and was closed. So that project will bring up design. So the committee and the town and the community will pick an alternative for that area, and then that will go to 30% design, and then we'll have to get more funding to increase that design, and then obviously for construction. So I would say that's the first project that's really going to be in the public eye, and we just had the kickoff for it too. So in the next 2 years, we'll be working on that. Actually, 2+ years. 2 years for the 30% design, and then more years until construction.
And also, Leah, what's already in motion is the project out in Sacajawea Pond, right?
Yep. So that project, it's a little bit slow, but it's going. We have we're waiting on alternatives for the nearshore reef and the living shoreline and roadside protection all together. We do have the alternatives just for the nearshore reef, but we're incorporating them all together to make a more robust alternative. And that should be delivered in the next couple of weeks, next couple of months for that. So that's, that'll also be in the public eye, but also not as frequently as Easy Street.
Great. Is that, Jet, what your questions were, Christy? Okay. All right. Any other questions or comments? Okay, good discussion. Right, no public comments. So we can move to discuss upcoming February 27th meeting, school break. Leah.
Sure, Peter. So the next meeting is February 27th, which is a Tuesday during school break. I think last year you all decided to cancel the meeting or push it, or I'm not sure. So just wanted to bring that up again this year and see what the committee's feeling.
Did you say we all decided to cancel that meeting? Is that what you said?
I think you canceled it last year. Okay. And then you had 3 in March.
Okay. I may be away. I'm not sure. I might be just coming back, but those of you guys with kids, or it doesn't matter whether you have kids or not, but those of you guys planning trips, Joanna, you had your hand up. Go ahead.
Yeah, I will definitely be away.
Everyone's nodding their heads. You people nodding your heads, you'll be away. Sarah, you'll be away. Okay, so
it's our chance to escape.
I thought the meetings were
the quietest time on the island.
Vacation by going to a meeting. Yeah, I don't think so. Okay, so all right, so no meeting on the 27th, but we are meeting on the 13th, correct, Leah?
Yes, and just do a motion for canceling the meeting on February 27th.
Okay, someone want to make that motion?
I'll make a motion to cancel the meeting on the 27th.
Second.
Okay, Joanna seconds. Roll call vote. Gary Beller.
Aye.
Rachel Freeman.
Aye.
Okay, Joanna Roach.
Aye.
Doug Rose.
Aye.
Jen Carberg.
Aye.
Christy Kickham.
Aye.
Sarah Boyce.
Aye.
Matt Fee.
Aye.
Chair votes aye. Excellent. Okay, so public outreach ideas and strategies from community members. As you guys know, this is just my little thing where if you have any ideas that didn't necessarily be put on the agenda, that you can express them now if you haven't sent them to me. If no one has anything, then updated media scorecard summary by Doug Rose. Do you have anything, Doug?
Yes, I do. But Leah's up.
Do you want to go, Leah?
Yeah, Peter, I just wanted to remind the committee that if you did not send me your homework regarding topics to include on a homeowner's brochure, please do that. Thank you.
And I think I thought they were due for today, but since I think we
Yes.
continued that to the next meeting, right?
Yeah, but I am leaving on Thursday, so I need everything together, and I need to send the packet in before I leave so that it complies with open meeting.
Okay. All right, go ahead, Doug.
Yeah, I have to start by apologizing. I've been very caught up in other projects lately, so I did not get to the minutes, so you can save some time on the agenda there. But in terms of the scorecard, just some highlights. This week, the week we're currently in, has actually been a very strong week, over 19,000 impressions, and it's largely due to the fact that the town of Nantucket's communications office picked up Leah's latest interview from Acclimate, the video clip. And what I think we're finding over this process of doing social media posts is the power of good content. And I think this is a really nice way for various organizations to scratch each other's back. I think it's been great that Acclimate has been so willing to work with Leah to create video content, because it does seem to be picked up more readily than just a static still image. The other thing I would say is I've just been extremely impressed with the degree to which, and I got to give Leah the credit for this, the very topical photography content that's being posted, I think is very relevant. And I know we talked about it in the past, rather than making it sort of a CRP etched in stone. It's a very real living kind of way to tell the story. Wow, look what happened last week. That all ties into what we've been talking about in the CRP. Grand total for our campaign so far since we started officially in October is 132,000 impressions. And I got to give a special shout out to the Land Bank. Thank you, Rachel, and Coastal Conservancy for the fact that they have been by far the most regular sharers of our CRP content. That's all I got.
Thanks. Excellent.
Yep.
Cool.
Sarah Boyce.
Thank you, Peter. Through the chair to Doug, or the group in general, I had a question about, obviously with the schedule, we're assigned different topics and posts to make so that we share the workload. And then as other things come up, like if, like with the storm, obviously that was like a really, I hate to say it's great, but it was an opportunity anyway to take some of those images and highlight some of that work. Many of us also okay, so I personally am an at-large member. I know Joanna's an at-large member, but we work for organizations that also work in this realm. Is it appropriate for us to also tag Natural Resources Department in relevant content? Maybe that's not appropriate at all, but I know like if we are being asked to share Natural Resources Department stuff, we don't always share at Linda Loring because in any given Thursday, there's like 20 organizations sharing the same content. So we either try to spread it out or just like let it go organically. I don't know. I just wanted to talk about that. And before I did it, I wanted to know if it was a kind of an appropriate thing. Maybe not. Maybe it's not.
Go ahead.
Can I answer that? Okay, thanks. Sarah, to answer, yes, tag us. And if it's appropriate, we'll share it. And if not, then we won't. But I would say tag us anyway. And then we'll, share it to our stories or whatever. Or if we're collaborating, then to a post.
All right, thanks, Leah. Matt?
Now I'm all set. I was going to say it's sort of up to the individual organizations whether they want to share from the town, but I think from the town's standpoint, the more the merrier. So,
yeah, great. Okay. Okay, so we have no minutes, which is totally understandable. Being a secretary for two committees, I completely understand where you're coming from, Doug. Being absolutely buried in minutes right now myself. So new business committee and natural resources department reports from Planning Board, Conservation Commission, Harbor and Shelters Advisory Board, Select Board, Advisory Committee of Non-Voting Taxpayers, and other committee members. well, we don't have planning board represented today, and we don't have planning commission. So we don't really have any reports unless anybody wants to say anything. I know Leah has something to say, so go ahead, Leah.
Thanks, Peter. So just a couple things. The Concom's next hearing for the wetland regulations is February 1st. And that's on Zoom again. And then I just got an email saying that the Steamship Authority, they are working on their capital plan for 2025. And in it was $1 million for the Nantucket Terminal Climate Resilience Feasibility Study. So that's excellent. And then further, another 25 million is expected for both 2030 and 2031. So a total of 50 million for construction of that terminal. So I'll be in contact with the director of the steamship to, just have a conversation with him. I know Vince did a couple years ago, but to see if Libby allows, if we can, work collaboratively with them on that project, or at least, offer advice. And then, I see Matt has a hand up.
Yeah, on that one, I'd ask, are they going to be trying to apply to the Army Corps or someone else like that? And if so, can we tag on, getting to the, sort of parts of Washington Street or access to and from the steamship, because it doesn't do any good to raise the steamship and no one can get there. So I would see if there's any way that we can collaboratively do that. Thank you.
Yeah, definitely agree. They did say that they'll be pursuing grants. I'm not sure which grants to help with that. And then they will also be a major stakeholder in the downtown neighborhood flood barrier. So that's, maybe do we elevate Easy Street as an alternative?
Oh, and also make sure, I'm sure she is, but just to make sure you alert Jesse Bell at the land bank, because they're gonna, that property, that Arno property is in play with them. And I don't know the update on that, but I'm sure Jesse will want to know everything that we're talking about right now.
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay, Joanna. Oh, sorry.
I was just going to say, just from a different perspective, a group of executive directors from some of these same organizations, including Jesse, had a meeting, I don't know, a couple of weeks ago, where we had Nat and Rob come and talk to us about what was happening down with the Steamship Authority, because some of the organizations in town, well, all of us are trying to do long-range planning around access to our various facilities. And the place where we needed to get the first bit of information is the Steamship Authority, so we can do appropriate planning. So Jesse was part of that conversation. So we are, I think this is going to be an ongoing conversation with this downtown group, because again, to your point, Peter, everyone is very curious about what's happening on Easy Street and Washington Street as it pertains to how it's going to affect the long-term strategic plans of all of our organizations. And Rob and Nat, I think, spoke pretty knowledgeably about to what the process was going to be and what the timeline was going to be. And yes, this question came up.
Good. That's good. Everyone's connected. That's what
everyone is connecting. Yeah.
Excellent. Leah, did we cut you off? And now I'll get to you, Gary.
Peter.
No, wait. Did I cut you off, Leah? Did you have something more to say?
I just have some more storm updates, but we can finish that after this conversation. But I will.
Go ahead, Gary.
Just a question. Leah mentioned that the Conservation Commission is going to take up the continuing upgrading of the regulations. Is it likely that at that next meeting they'll be talking about increasing the buffer zone? The thing that they put off, in theory, that they put off discussing, which Peter says they discussed anyway? Is that likely to be on that schedule, say the February 1?
I'm not sure. I'll double check and let you all know.
I mean, to me, the only question I have is whether or not our position. I think that's our position, that we think they should increase the buffer zones. Whether or not it's clear to the Conservation Commission that we as CRAC
Thanks, Jim.
believes that they should adopt something that increases the buffer zone protections.
Leah.
Thanks, Peter. I just want to touch on the buffer zone. So if you want to comment on that, again, you need to bring it toward in front of the select board because you are advisors to the select board. So essentially what you're recommending, the select board is recommending. So there's a process for that that would have to be followed.
So what you're saying is, Leah, that, you know, this is a potential agenda item for the 13th, where we wordsmith a comment and then send it to the select board, correct?
Yes.
But as private,
I mean, you do have a select board liaison on the committee, so
right.
If
but this is not a situation. Okay, sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off. This is not a situation where with 10 minutes to go in the meeting, the committee tells me to write a letter for February 1st. Just making sure.
Yes, but does the timing not work well in our favor then? Because if we're going to talk about it 2 weeks after they've considered it, why bother? In other words, if they're really going to consider that issue on February 1st, then we don't have to talk about it on the 13th because it may be done yes or no, but it's 2 weeks after they actually consider it.
Well, I think we need to know how much longer the public hearing is going to go on. So that'll be key, because if it's going to go on beyond the 13th, then we may have another opportunity. But so Leah, can then the committee tell me to write a letter to the select board now, or do we need more time to talk about it?
It needs to be an agenda item that you're talking about and what points you're including and why.
Say it again. What did you say?
I said it would need to be an agenda item where the committee is giving you content and reasons for why you want the buffer zones and increased and all of that. And then that would be brought forth to the select board for them to either, approve it and send it to Concom or to not.
So I think, Gary, that we may be too late, but I'm not sure. But I will, I'm going to reach out to Ian Golding, the chairman of the Conservation Commission, and find out how much longer the public hearing is going to go. And then I can get back to you outside of this meeting. Or I'll get back to the whole committee. I'll send an email. Does that sound okay?
Yes, but we did actually talk about this issue as a committee many weeks ago, many meetings ago, and that's when we ended up sending the letter.
Yeah.
Sending the letter because we thought it would be taken up, and of course it wasn't taken up at the time. But so it's not as if this committee has not considered the issue and concluded that we think the coastal resiliency plan would encourage the increase to the size of the buffer zones. I thought that's where we came out the last time when we drafted that first letter. I don't know why we have to consider it again and again.
Let's hold that thought. Matt?
Leah's technically right, but this is the bureaucracy that sort of drives me crazy. And things that should be fairly simple, take months. And then we wonder why we're moving at the speed of government sometimes. Or we wonder why, the private sector that isn't under these same constraints is able to overwhelm our boards and commissions. So, I think we have talked about it. I think it is it's important. I think if individuals want to go as individuals and say that I'm on CRAC, I'm not speaking for CRAC, but the Coastal Resiliency Plan says to take this into consideration, and I as an individual say it, and CRAC has voted this. I mean, I think that would be all right if this is going to take 2 or 3 months. I think there's a way for people to have their voices heard and support the Concom in the short term. It's pretty hard, I think, for us to stay on top of this so that we're a month or month and a half ahead so that we can get this done in this manner. I find it very difficult. And so anyway, And these are the things that make me wonder why I've stayed in government so long. Just to be completely honest, when I have my days where I think I'm done, this is the stuff that makes me think I'm done. Thank you.
Thanks, Matt. Go ahead, Leah.
Yes, you all did discuss it for a little bit, but you need to discuss it more. And I mean, there's an agenda item on here to discuss the procedure for writing these letters. So just to circle back to that is important. So Peter would, or whoever would write a draft that would get posted in the packet. It would be an agenda item. You all would discuss it, edit it if necessary, and then vote to send it to the select board for them to approve. So I just want to round out that procedure. Just got to follow the open meeting law.
Okay, so I know how everyone's thinking. So are you all good with me writing a letter for the next meeting and putting it in the packet, and then we vote on it? We don't have to do a roll call vote because I know how everybody feels, I think. Okay, go ahead, Doug. Did you have your hand up?
No, I was going to make a motion to do exactly what you just said. Thanks.
Okay. Do we need a motion, Leah, or can we just go faster than the speed of government and just say, I'm going to do it?
It's always better safe than sorry. Might as well just do a motion and do the whole thing.
Okay.
So moved.
Second.
Okay. Roll call vote. Doug Rose.
Aye.
Gary Beller.
Aye.
Rachel Freeman. Okay, I saw you say aye, so I can read lips. Go ahead, Joanna.
Aye.
Jen.
Aye.
Sarah.
Aye.
Matt.
Aye.
Christie.
Aye.
Chair votes aye. Okay, Leah, do you want to go ahead with the storm stuff?
Yeah, sure. So in your packet, I put a bunch of pictures from the January 10th and 13th storms. They were relatively similar with the flooding, which was interesting. It's also interesting that it was a southwest or southeast storm, but there was some, flooding downtown. Generally, we don't see that. We see it more with like nor'easters and things like that. So both of those days, the actual storm surge and the tide was 2 feet above the predicted tide, so for a total of 6 feet. And both of those storms either went up to or very close to the 2005 storm event that is on the Lamb Bank Easy Street Park, the marking there. And NOAA sends out coastal flood forecasts for any storm event, and those two storms, Nantucket wasn't included for minor or moderate flooding. And so I contacted them, and I contacted them on Wednesday after seeing all of the flooding downtown and said, hey, why wasn't Nantucket included on those forecasts? Martha's Vineyard was. Do you assume that if Martha's Vineyard is going to have moderate or minor or significant flooding, that Nantucket would? And they said they don't assume that. And so I sent them pictures and I said, we had some serious flooding downtown. And then, so they appreciated those pictures and that feedback. And then they anticipated that the Saturday or the January 13th storm would only have minor flooding. But it was the same, if not a little bit higher than the Wednesday storm. So I sent them more pictures and that information, and they're going to work with me to take a closer look at the Nantucket flood stage and impact statements, and they'll come out here for a site visit sometime in the spring so that they can see the areas firsthand and in the downtown area. So they said that the storm surge was a result of a strong pressure falls as the storm passed the island, and despite the southwest winds, which I guess is a very rare occurrence. And then during that time, there were higher than normal tides as well because of the moon cycles. So just wanted to update you all with that. Hopefully we'll have some more accurate storm forecasts for flooding. But yeah, I go out and document during all of these storm events any damages on the South Shore, North Shore, downtown, and upload that to My Coast. You all are welcome to do that too. It's an app on your phone, really easy to use. You can do storm reports, and that goes to the state. And also, it's great to be able to access those pictures as well if you're running grants or for specific projects.
Great, thank you, Leah. Any comments or questions from the committee? Are there any public comments on this item? Okay. Well, we know what the upcoming meeting date is. It's February 13th, so I'll take a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Second.
Okay, roll call vote. Doug Rose.
Aye.
Gary Beller.
Aye.
Rachel Freeman.
Aye.
Sarah Boyce.
Aye.
Jen Carberg. You there, Jen?
Aye.
Thank you. Christy Kickham.
Aye.
Matt Fee.
Aye.
Chair votes aye. See you guys in a couple weeks, if not before.
Stay dry.
Rock and roll. Did we make it? Just a little bit over. No big deal. Still